Good evening. It is Saturday, March 28th at 7:06 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm your host, Jason Fortune. This is Unmasked. Tonight, as we always try to do on a Saturday night, excuse me, we have a show where we're going to talk about something that people don't like to talk about, and we're not only going to talk about that, we're going to dive in and dissect it and put a pretty sharp laser beam, pretty sharp microscope on this topic. And if you had seen what it was, or if you'd seen any of the social media beforehand, it is how abuse works and why we don't stop it. So there's always been a way that we've been taught to think about abuse, and that is you have the abuser and you have the abused. And that's kind of it. And we go on. The abuser abuses the abused. Hopefully the abuser gets caught, mostly doesn't, and time marches on. That's not the picture to this. There is a structure and there's a pattern. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. But before we begin and before we dive in, what do we always do? What do we do before any session? When you join a Grove and Sage Collective and you sit down, you always do the same thing that we do here, and that is breathe. Let's all get centered. I want you to feel where you're sitting. Whether you're sitting on a chair, a couch, you're sitting at your desk listening to this later on, go ahead and feel what's holding you. Feel how you're being held and feel gravity pushing you down into what you were being held by. Just feel that for a second. Now, let's take our first breath together. In through the nose, all the way to the top. Go ahead and begin. Now at the top, hold for a little bit, and then release slowly through your mouth like you're breathing out of a straw. And every time we try to exhale together, or every time we do exhale, make it longer than your inhale. Now let's begin with another big inhale in, all the way to the top. Hold for a little bit. Now blow out slowly through that straw and release all your stress. Now, I want you to take one big breath in through your nose again. Fill everything up. Fill it up very strong all the way. Hold, and now breathe out slowly as you can. And let's settle back in. Let's all be here together. Hope everybody is feeling a little bit more centered and grounded, a little bit more open and ready to hear this. Because some of it's not going to be, some of it's not super pleasant, and that's okay. I mean, the ones of us that have been living with this all of our lives, we know it's not pleasant. And so, here we go. Let's dig in. Oh, okay. Before we begin, I want to, if you had seen any of the social media before, I introduced a graphic, and I want to reintroduce that and talk about that. So, I want you to think about abuse as a bell curve. On one side, we have the abuser. On the other side, the abused. In the middle, where most of us sit, where many people sit, is the conformer, the denier, and the blocker. These are not fixed identities at all. They're roles we all move through. And even unfortunately, the two ends in an intergenerational family pattern, the two ends can even switch. This thing can get fluid and twisted, just as complex as the human species can get. And so really though, and what we're here to talk about, we're going to talk about all three parts, but what tonight is here to introduce is this is a fluid pattern, and the middle, the conformer, denier, blockers that I talk about, that's what holds the system in place, unfortunately. And I know this is hard stuff to talk about. Nobody likes being put in any of these, to be put in any of either being the abuser, being the abused, or sitting in the middle where most of us sit, where a lot of people sit, like any bell curve, in the middle is where the most are populated, are centered at. Sorry. Water. Water and breathing. Whew. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning of the bell curve with the abuser. And let's break down the abuser for a little bit. The abuser is not weak. They're confident. They're not meek. You ever seen a meek abuser? They act, they move, they push, they cross boundaries quickly. They're like guerrilla warfare here. Guerrilla warfare abuse is how they operate. And we both know this. They're not always villains. They're not always obvious villains. Let me reframe that. They are often and more than likely managers, CEOs, civic leaders, pastors, coaches, teachers, babysitters. Basically, any time there is a difference in power. There's a nice word for this. It's slipping my mind, but anytime there's somebody that holds power over somebody else, right then, there's the chance for abuse. People in positions of authority, people who are trusted, and you can look up in the news and search it, and it is not just a page or two of things that have happened. It goes on and on and on, and that's just this year. Abusers know how to control a room. They're charismatic. They're manipulative. They shape perceptions early. They groom. Like I said before, they move before others react. That's how the abuse happens first, is the transgression happens because the abuser moves fast. And most importantly, they rely on the fact that most others won't challenge them. There's a secret for the abusers that are watching me, and there are. And for anybody out there that's wondering how this pattern really works, the abuser's one of their hugest secrets is they rely on nobody's going to challenge them. People will look the other way. People won't believe it's them. He's such a nice guy. She's helped so many people. Guess who knows? Guess who knows? Who knows what the abuser's doing? Man, there's one people that know, and that is the abused. The abused know, not just in their mind, in their body. Even if their mind doesn't admit it yet, their body knows. They feel it before they can explain it. I did. Abusers are often whistleblowers, truth seekers, the ones who speak when others won't, the ones holding family or institutional secrets, the black sheep. That's what they get called, right? Crazies, black sheep. They're fucked up, man. These people disrupt the narrative simply by telling the truth. And people don't want to hear it. Who doesn't want to hear it? These people right here in the middle, the conformer, the denier, the blocker, they don't want to hear it. And because of that, because of not wanting to hear it, they're dismissed, isolated, questioned. And it's not because they're wrong, but because what they bring forward creates discomfort. The herd doesn't want to be discomforted. The herd wants the comfortable couch. The herd doesn't want challenge. The herd just wants to submit to the authority and feel comfortable and pick up their paycheck. And we've already talked about who the power authority structure usually is. Remember that. So now we've got the middle, you know? We've got the middle. This is where most people live. This is the conformer. This is the denier, and this is the blocker. These are the people that hold up the status quo. And unfortunately, that's most of us. These are the ones who fall in line quickly. These are the ones that don't want to make waves. And we all know that we slide in and out of that. There's times that I don't want to make waves too. So I mean, these are fluid, like I said. If any of you are feeling picked on, or feeling like I'm wrong, these are times for reflection, not times for denial. This middle segment we're talking about on the bell curve, they're the ones that know something is off. They're the ones that they can feel something's not right, but they choose not to act. They sit in silence. Not because they're bad people, but because they're scared and they're uncertain. They're not sure. They're protective of the stability they have, the stability that's in their family, the stability that's in their church, the stability that's on their team. Things are said like, you know, I don't know the full story. It's not my place. Man, I just don't want to make things worse, you know? And that is exactly why it works. That's exactly how this works. The conformer says, I don't want to make this worse. We all, like, things have already been bad. We need to get along. You know? The denier says, I don't have enough data to go by. I'm not sure that really happened. That guy seems like a nice guy. She's never been accused of anything like this. This is the language of the middle. This is the language of the middle of the bell curve, of the abuse bell curve. And everything I said sounds totally reasonable. Everything I said sounds logical, and it's exactly why this works. The language that is used, what we talked about, it's how this mechanism works. I'm going to take a moment and breathe if you don't mind. It's hard doing this stuff at times. It's not hard doing it at times, it's hard doing it all the time. So why does the abuse continue? How come it just keeps rolling on, generation after generation, century after century? The abuse continues because, like I said earlier, abusers move fast and the system moves slow. It doesn't matter what that system is. I'm not talking about the judicial system or the court system, which is basically laughable, but even the parental system, the school system, the people that are supposed to protect the kids, those move slow. Because why? Because of what I told you the abuser is like. The abuser is usually not some little creeping, snivelly guy that you look at and you're like, oh my God, pedophile. Abusers dress nice. They look nice. They're put together. They're educated. I've seen it firsthand myself. You know, my own father who was abused by the clergy, by the Catholic Church, and he's never dealt with it. He never dealt with his abuse, and by not dealing with what happened to him, he became meticulous. He became hyper vigilant in everything he did, and he was manipulative. He was a manager, a director, and a CEO of a large medical facility, and the whole time abusing his family behind the scenes, and nobody knew. David wouldn't do that. Isn't that always the first thing? He wouldn't do that. Troy wouldn't do that. He's too nice of a kid. He wouldn't do that to a bunch of other kids. Look at him now. Captain of the fire department, that's not what he would do. He wouldn't do that to anybody. The abuser looks certain, and the abused looks destabilized. That is another huge part of this, and you have to understand. The abuser looks put together. They're clean cut, shaved, looking nice, looking good, looking confident. And what does the abused look like? I can pull up pictures of myself and show you that. Maybe I should have had that ready. I can show you what the abused looks like, and it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like this right now. And that's how this works also. The abused looks crazy, and the abuser looks put together, and they couldn't have done that. And what falls right into line with all of this? What falls right into line? The middle. The conformer, the denier, and the blocker. They start doing their jobs, and it works. The middle hesitates, and hesitation is not neutral. Silence is not neutral. It starts leaning, and as it leans over time, it leans towards the power. It leans towards the abuser. It always favors the abuser. The only thing that doesn't favor the abuser is action. All right. So I'm talking some wild, crazy shit here. I'm off in the deep waters where fortune goes. thinking crazy stuff. Smoke the devil's cabbage and he's way out there. All right. Let's talk about some real world applications. This pattern is not rare, my friends. The pattern is not rare. Let's do this. It shows up everywhere. This bell curve, the bell curve of abuse, shows up in the corporate entity. The abuser is often the executive, the manager, the one driving results at any cost. And that's the one there. The abuser is the one that gets things done. Nobody really likes him or her. He's kind of a real asshole, but you know what, man? He delivers. He's the one keeping the paychecks. You know, he's the one putting the money in the bank that pays our paychecks. We can't fire him. The abused are the employee who speaks up, that can't take it, that feels the pressure of this person and literally cannot suffer working with them. They report issues. The abused gets upset as things start going wrong. They're refusing to comply. They don't want to go to meetings with this person. Right there. The middle is the team that sees what's happening but stays quiet to protect their job, their income, and their standing in the company. And damn it, if we don't know right now, as I'm saying this, situations in our head of what I just talked about. Ready for the next one? Let me take a drink of water, if you don't mind, and a breath. The church. There's no shying away from this, and we know it. All you have to do is open a newspaper anytime. Just open a national newspaper and boom, it's always right there. The abuser is the pastor. The abuser is a spiritual leader. The abuser is the music pastor. The youth pastor. It doesn't matter. It's the person who holds authority and influence. It's always the same. That part is the same, authority and influence. The abused are those who question. They question who come forward. They are people who feel something and they know that something is wrong. They know something's wrong beneath the surface and they know what's going on. And who is the middle? The middle is the congregation. The middle is the congregation that senses there might be something, but it defers to the authority because they choose belief over disruption. They choose that could never happen. He wouldn't do that and keep the church running with no scandal. Churches don't want scandal. So when you don't want scandal, you hang the abused out to dry. And I'm imaginative, and I'm creative, and I'm a storyteller, and I'm not making this shit up. And we all know it. Let's move on. Soccer coaches, athletics, football coaches, male wrestling coaches with male wrestlers. Is this anything new? Am I bringing up anything? Am I being, woo? Am I smoking the wacky tobacco for sure and I'm out there again? No, friends, I'm not. I might be smoking the wacky tobacco, but I'm not out there. The abuser is the coach who pushes beyond the boundaries, like we talked about, who controls, intimidates, and manipulates. We know who the abused are. They're the players who feel it, who carry it, and who might try to speak out. And what happens when they speak out? They're ostracized, told they're crazy. And who is the middle in all this? Once again, who is the middle, my friends? Let's put it back up one more time. The middle are the parents, the assistants, and the organization that sees glimpses of what's happening and they choose not to interfere. You know, let's talk about that for a second since we're here. Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, a prominent Republican up in Washington, D.C. Look him up. Look him up when he was a assistant coach in a wrestling department. Prime example. And this is Jim Jordan, huge man who influences our everyday life. And I'm not calling him an abuser. What I'm trying to say is look up Jim Jordan, look him up, and look up when he was a wrestling coach, assistant wrestling coach, and looked how he denied he knew anything about the abuse that was going on. And the abuse that he was there was so widespread and prevalent, there was no way he didn't know. And there is hundreds of men's lives destroyed today that were just simply trying to wrestle in college. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to break between as I'm laying out some things, and I want to talk about something real quick. Everybody that I've shared my story with, every single person that I've shared my abuse story with has shared their abuse story with me. And almost all of them has said, I haven't told anybody until you. And I am batting at 100. What's the sports ball anecdote for this? Batting 500. I don't even know. I'm batting 100% MFers. Abuse is huge and prevalent. And this is the part I want to stop and talk about when I said earlier that these things can swap around. You can be abused and be in denial and be part of the middle and be denying and conforming and blocking yourself. And I mean, I can't believe it, but my mom, my mother, I guess maybe even my father, many people in my family have been heavily abused and absolutely deny it, deny everything that I'm talking about, show every single symptom of ever being abused, and they're in the middle, conforming and denying and blocking. And that's okay. It's not right, but it's how the human meat sack monkey non-religious person will do. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm calling out every human to say that sometimes we deny our abuse and slip into the middle. Sometimes we deny our abuse and slide all the way to the left, like much of my family does. And that's what intergenerational abuse is about, is swapping from the abused into the abuser. And that's one of the chords of intergenerational abuse. Now we're going to go back to where we were. We were talking about how this applies, the abuse model applies to different systems, different human systems. The teacher and the school system. The abuser's the teacher or authority figure who's misusing power in the classroom. And it doesn't have to be sexual abuse at times. Maybe it's verbal abuse, maybe it's physical abuse, maybe it's manipulative abuse that's kind of, hard to really put your finger on. But the abused are the students who experience this, and they know what's going on, and they come home and they talk about it, and they're like told, sometimes these children, it often even lacks language for them. They don't have a way to even describe what's happening to them. And in the middle is the administration, staff, and even parents who sense something, who once again sense something, but they don't act because it's just easier unless there's exact, honest proof somehow, just total proof. And even then, sometimes people don't act, and that's strange. But this middle curve, man, that middle part of this bell curve, it's why it keeps happening, because the abuser can keep going on and doing what they do, and the abused looks destabilized, and the middle pearl clutching feather cluckers get everybody put back into place. I hate to be mean about this, but it's got to be absolutely exposed, and we all have to know. You know what, right now? I'm watching chats, and I have been all night, and if anybody is watching later on wants to talk about this or leave comments, that are great. But what I am saying is, on this bell curve, and I'm once again going to put it up, We're all in this, and there is no way to not be in this. This encompasses every human. And what I am challenging anyone is, who sits on the outside of this? Who can sit outside of this bell curve? Somebody who doesn't know what's going on? Somebody who's just blind to it and just doesn't even know? Man, probably call it a denier. So this isn't about one environment. I know I've brought up several to try to overlay the model on top of different power structures in our society. And this isn't about one environment. It's a pattern. That's what I'm trying to point out here, is we have a systemic pattern, and we all would rather grab the popcorn and the remote control. You know what's interesting? I'll admit it. I watched on social media these groups like Dads Against Predators and pedophile hunters, and people that go out and they lure out pedophiles that want to find a little kid. And they either get the cops called on them, they either call the cops on the pedophiles, sometimes they beat the pedophiles. I mean, these are vigilantes doing the work, so it's not by the book. And then they record everything and put it out on social media. And the part of me that's been abused and the part of me that wants justice really bad, I like watching this stuff. But the thing I'll tell you is, when they're catching predators, they don't look like pedophiles like you would think right in your mind when you call up what a pedophile is. They look like, and I even hate to say this, but I mean, they look like me. They look like a normal dude you work with, a dude standing next to you that you work with. Oh, he's such a nice guy. He's always been such a cool dude. Those dudes. I'm just saying that people hide what they are. Well, who we are when we're around people, mask. When we're all around a big public, when we're in our office, when we're around our friends, masked up. We're not vulnerable. We're playing games. Who we are by ourselves when nobody's looking, when we're in our car, when we're in a room that nobody's around us, when we have, nobody watching, that's who we are. And it is interesting, and interesting is not the word, disgusting, horrible to watch who these pedophiles are in communities everywhere. Absolutely normal dads, grandpas, uncles, family members, community members, civic leaders. People got busted not knowing that the 13-year-old they were talking to is some older man with an axe to grind against pedophiles. And when that happens, man, these people come apart. Enough about that. My point was, pedophiles look like you and me. You can't even tell. And they are abusing like crazy. And we know that too. It's all over the news. All over the news. The core truth of what I'm trying to say is that abusers know what they're doing, and the abused knows what's happening. The abusers know what they're doing, and the abused knows what's happening. It's the middle. The middle doesn't want to know. The middle doesn't want to know, and you guys hold all the power. Because this is hard-ass work, man. The Me Too movement tried to get the ball rolling, and it fizzles and sparks and farts, but it's not near enough. That's why I talk about you got to drag the abusers right fucking out into the light. And it's hard work, especially when you're the abused and you're trying to heal. And that is so hard, just trying to heal, that to also think about coming after your abuser. Most people can't do that. It has taken me 52 years to get where I'm at now and be able to start dragging my abusers right on out into the light. And you know what? They all hate it. They're running. They're in denial. It's hilarious to be on my side watching what's happening. Took a lot of work to be able to get to the power place to do this. I need a time to take a break. If you guys don't psych, I'm going to pause. I'm going to breathe. I just need a second while I let all this sink in and while I finish up what I'm talking about you with. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a little beat to myself. Thank you for that. That's a lot to go through this, man. I am not a trained actor. These aren't scripts that I've worked through and prepared for. I mean, I am a 52-year-old man that has complex PTSD, and it's not easy. And I get triggered, and I get worked up, and I can feel my heart beating faster, and I'm ready to fight. And I just need a little bit of time to calm back down and breathe, take a drink of water. It's okay for all of us to be exactly who we are. It is not okay to be an abuser. That's the one caveat in life. No more abuse. The world is changing. And if you're watching the news, even though it's sad and the abusers seems like they're winning, and for the most part they are, a lot of times now people are starting to get drug out. The abusers are starting to get drug out into the light. And that's our job. We have to, let me back it up a second and talk about the part of this. What is the solution to this? What is the solution to the problem? And to me, and I could just be different, but to me the answer is absolutely right in front of all of our faces. The middle has to start acting. The middle needs to start listening to the abused and not to the abuser. It's okay to go ahead and think the feelings about what we have about the abuser and that we don't really want them to be thought of as an abuser, but the abused needs to be listened to and taken what they're saying and investigated. And the only people that can do that are the middle now. The middle hold all the keys to stopping the abuse cycle. Because they listen to the abused, they drag the abuser out and make them stop what they're doing, segregate them away, because that's what they need. Abusers must be segregated, put into treatments. Their life needs stopped. They're not the CEO and manager anymore. Taken out of that position and put into therapy full time. That's the only answer for the abused. And the middle can help with all of this by listening to the abuser, by listening to the whistleblower, by listening to the black sheep, by listening to the light bringer. So, how about this? Sun's going down. Sun's gone down. The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King Jr. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Eli Wiesel. The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of the good people. Napoleon Bonaparte. What I've talked about tonight is not theoretical. I'm not making shit up. You can't make this shit up. It's happening right now. It's happening in every city that we know of, in every small little village, in every isolated little farm. The abused are being crushed, and the abusers are getting away with it, and they're winning. They've been winning in my family for over 200 years. Easy. They've demolished my family. I wish I could show pictures to you of my family and show you these demolished people that are out there struggling and trying to go to work and trying to make their mortgage, rent, living in a tent. And the abusers are not winning because they're stronger and their predator-like behaviors just are too much to deal with. That is not the truth. It's because the middle remains inactive. The middle is remaining inactive. So, when the middle changes, when people trust what they feel, trust your gut, speak sooner, interrupt patterns early. Pattern interruption is important. Refuse to default to silence mode. Choose the truth over comfort. Choose the truth over comfort. Courage is not a certainty in this. Courage is a movement. And before everything else can feel safe, we have to start doing this. We have to start acting. That's when change starts to happen. So in my final reflections for the evening, I ask, or no, let me reframe myself. The question is not, are there abusers? We know there are. We know there are, and we know they're everywhere. The question is where am I on this curve? Because we are all on this curve, and like I said before, please tell me something that's outside of this curve when it comes to the abuse cycle. And when that moment comes, are you going to ask yourself, or will you ask yourself, please, am I going to stay in the middle? Am I going to conform? Am I going to deny? Am I going to block what the abused is saying? Or am I going to act? Am I going to do something? Am I going to stand up for the abused? Am I going to quit standing up for the abuser? We don't have to fix everything. You don't have to fix everything, but you do have to stop pretending. That is what tonight is about. That's what this is all about. That's what this bell curve that I made to show, that's what everything is about, is to try to get the middle to stop pretending. And I hope this video lives on and on and on in the internet universe annals forever, so people can see this and refer back to this. You have to stop pretending. You have to stop pretending you're not part of this. This is Unmasked. I'm your host, Jason Fortune. Tomorrow, we have some groves that are private groves right now that we're working through tech support, working through issues of making things run really smooth. And we are so freaking close to opening our doors and being able to hold live, facilitated virtual group healing that we've been talking about for a while now. We are so close. And I can't wait to see you there, because I'll be in most of those groves myself. So, I hope you enjoyed is not the right word, but I hope what we talked about was meaningful, and I hope it was enlightening. I hope you got something from it. For those of you that disagree with me, let me know. For those of you who agree with me, let me know. Until then, I'm going to leave you tonight. It's Saturday night. I've kept you now for 48 minutes. That's good. Didn't break the hour mark. Thank you for spending your time with me. Time is a precious commodity, and I'm humbled and grateful that you spend this with me. To end the evening, I've got a song for you this time. It is called Last Minute by the Moulins. It's always a pleasure being able to do this, and it's an honor to have any of you that watch me, spend time with me. Love your loved ones.
In the last minute,
enjoy yourself.
Stop the clock and try to wake up.
If an abuser's out there, do the right thing about it. Until then, my friends, I'll see you. Oh, very last thing, we might be on tomorrow afternoon talking about the groups. We'll have to see if we're too wiped out to do it or not, but if not, me and Caroline will be on. That's just up in the air, so it'll just kind of be random. But until then, have a great night, have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. I'll keep bringing the good stuff.
So hold me again, that is all that I ask of you. You understand me more than I'll ever do. So restart this moment, it's all secondary thoughts. And I feel you're the only one. So I guess you are. In the last minute, stop the clock and try to wake up. Behind your eyelids, a dream was lost, lost again. In the last minute, I told you everything I wanted to. Now you follow